Welcome to the Newtown Big Dreams podcast, an interview-style talk show that's your gateway to the fabulous and fascinating people who relocated to start a new life. Whether you're new to our podcast or your city, our fellow neighbors from across Canada, North America, and the entire English-speaking world share their stories of reaching new horizons and big dreams. So sit back and relax as we navigate in-depth and intimate conversations with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, executives, creatives, and anyone who can share their story about their Newtown big dreams. And now, here's your host, Luke J. Menkes.
So, Lynda, you're one of the rare guests that we've had that was actually born and raised here in Kelowna.
Yes.
And actually your parents as well.
That's right.
That's a really rare case. I don't think I've met someone whose parents were actually born and raised here as well.
Yeah, we've been, my mom was born here in 1930. She was the first of their family to be born here out of nine children. And my dad was born in that same year.
Wow.
So my family originally came from England on my dad's side in the late 1800s. And I was one of the first orchardists up in the East Kelowna area. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know the story of why they moved here in the late 1800s?
I think there was kind of an exodus out of England around that time, and people were looking for a better way of life.
Right.
And it was, I think, probably pretty crowded from what I can understand, and things weren't always the best conditions.
Mm-hmm.
When I trace family history back, there was a lot of, sorrowful things happening with people in England and all of the world.
Yeah.
And so I think there was enough communication back and forth that a lot of people came around that same time and settled here.
Yeah. So word would get back and, this is a beautiful place. You can have orchards. And
that's exactly right.
I believe the Canadian government, I know in Saskatchewan, they would give land to anybody that would come. Especially a lot of Ukrainians came. And
that's with my mom's family. I think that's how they arrived here in 1929.
Do you know what type of orchard they had?
I believe it was just the hard fruits, the apples and pears.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty common.
Yeah.
And so what was it like growing up here? I mean, you must have seen tremendous changes. We're kind of a mid-sized city now.
Yeah.
I know it was very, very small town.
Absolutely. My dad used to work in Alberta, and the bus used to drop him off. The Greyhound right at our front door. There was everybody was just sort of family friendly, and everything was all small town. We grew up, for the most part, I grew up on a little house on Highway 97 that's no longer there, of course. And across the field from us originally was a cabbage patch, big farm. And then it turned into Mountain Shadows, which was a golf course and a curling rink at that time. And now it's Home Depot and all of the big stores that are there. So
right. So Highway 97, was it in the exact same spot it is now?
Yes.
Much? Yeah. It was just a 2-lane.
That's right. Just a little thoroughfare through town.
Yeah. And you used to have to take a ferry across, and then there was the drawbridge.
That's correct. That. Yeah. I don't remember much of that. I was pretty little when that was still happening. But so we grew up with, the train was still running, and so every night we'd go to sleep with the train whistles going, past on the foot of Dilworth Mountain, and we could hear cougars howling and,
wow.
Things happening like that.
Amazing. And I understand when the mall was built in the 1970s, it was kind of in the middle of nowhere. That's what people told me. And people said that people were kind of wondering, why are they building this here? There's no homes around it.
There was a bit of a disconnect between Kelowna and the Rutland area. And so that kind of started to fill in that gap. And we know from there what happened. It just really filled in after that.
Did you leave it all? Did you live somewhere else?
For a very, very short time, in my late teens, I traveled around and lived I lived up in the northern part of BC for a little while, but not very long. I needed to be home. My family was all here, and it just felt like the place I needed to be. So I've never really left.
Right. Well, it is such a beautiful place. Now, you've done many things. You've been an artist, musician, entrepreneur, a business consultant. Tell us a little bit about your life and when you became an artist. Were you very young
As a young person, like teenager, I used to sketch and have some fun with that. I had a girlfriend who went to university in fine arts and sort of was a little frightened and intimidated by that and dropped it. And then, of course, you get busy having a family and doing all the things that you need to do, to make it through day to day, and didn't really spend a lot of time on art except for music. I always had a guitar or a keyboard or something around and made sure that I, had that going all the time. But I think, and I don't think I'm alone in this, being that it's a community where I was born and raised, my parents were born and raised, I started to feel kind of a disconnect because we're so tourism oriented. There were so many people coming in, and I kind of started to lose that connection of feeling really that it was my community. And so spent a lot of time focusing on getting involved and trying to make a difference in whatever way I could.
Yeah.
And started an arts council. A lot of my friends were musicians and artists, and because of having a business background, I knew how to set up organizations. And so started to hear back in 2011 around there that people really were looking for a place to connect and share their creativity. And so I formed Kelowna Arts Council, which was then Artists for Creative Alliance.
And that was in 2012, I believe?
2012, November 2012, we incorporated. And just because there needed to be a place for everybody to enjoy the creative community. Without any restrictions. So when we started off right off the top with doing a coffee house, because a lot of the people were musicians or poets and that kind of thing. So that was the natural way to start off, just doing things to start getting the community connected. And I always said it that, at the door, we never ask who you vote for, who you pray to, who you sleep with, or what the designated letters are after your name. Just come and share what you do.
Yeah.
And we've been doing that for almost 8 years now.
Yeah.
Twice a month and welcome everybody in. And we see some amazing gifts come forward with that. And lots of collaborations come out of that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess the council is a way for people to network, right? And you might hear someone perform or see someone and say, you should really talk to this person.
Absolutely.
Is that kind of
so
the way it works?
Yeah, I've partnered with lots of organizations in town. I know lots of places for people to share what they do. Making those connections happen for people is really fulfilling. Yeah. And we, the people at the Marmalade Cat Cafe have been so supportive and invited us in to their space. So we look after the Friday night live music. That's a 2-hour performance. Anybody's welcome to go. The cafe is open. There's no cover charge. People could just come and listen to. We try to stay local. There's the odd person who comes from afar that has a bit of a connection with us, and we'll bring them in. And then we do our twice a month coffee house there as well now. We don't keep the cafe open for those. They're on Wednesday nights, second and fourth Wednesday nights. Because we've created a true listening environment for our performers, no matter whether they're sharing a story or a poem or a song. We had an 82-year-old woman come out and do a stand-up comedy debut.
Right.
It was beautiful. But we can assure anybody that comes has that true listening environment. You can hear a pin drop.
Right.
So we don't want coffee being frothed in the background or people making orders. So I shop and I bring in cookies and fruit, and we have coffee and tea on, and people can help themselves for a small donation. And then we preserve that listening environment, and people, sometimes that's their 5 minutes, 10 minutes on stage, and then that's it. Yeah. Sometimes, like I say, they form collaborations with other people, and they come back again, and the next thing you know, they're out touring and doing amazing things and recording and that kind of thing. So
that's amazing. Yeah. So if I were to go to try to buy a coffee on one of those Wednesdays, would it be closed, or is there
the door is open? The door is always open, and we try to collect a $5 or a $10 cover fee at the door, depending if you're an Arts Council member. It's $5, just because we want to make sure that our feature artists are paid, and so we do an hour of open mic, and then I bring in a feature performer, and we pay them.
And that helps to ensure the audience is respectful and there to listen. You're not going to pay $10 if you're...
Absolutely, and it's always top-notch. I mean, we have so many artists to choose from here that I don't think we've ever been disappointed. It's pretty amazing, really. That's
good to know. I didn't even know that existed. So that's one of the reasons I love doing the show so much, is because I learned so much about the city that, working full-time and busy with kids and stuff you're never going to know about unless
That's
you
right.
actually talk to people.
Well, and when we started this almost 8 years ago, there was there weren't a lot of opportunities for that to happen, for anybody to go and listen to live music, unless it was in a bar, which is fine, if you know that's the agenda at the bar is selling the alcohol and people socializing. So the music is secondary.
Yes.
And but now, I mean, in the years that have been since we started, more and more people are realizing the value of having that live connection with creative people. So yeah, we're seeing more and more of that all the time. So there's never a shortage now of places for people to go and enjoy.
Right. You were a journalist for a while. Like, you had a local magazine.
I did. It was a small little magazine called Okanagan Woman. There's another one now with the same name, but it's not the same at all. And when I purchased it, was one of those little fold-up coffee magazines, and I turned it into a magazine style and added color and brought it to a different level. I think I had 23 writers on tap who regularly contributed, so I rotated through them, and I wrote myself some of the things. I wrote a theater review and a restaurant review.
So you would have a column about local restaurant.
And the way that happened was, and I delivered my own magazines. I delivered thousands of them every 2 weeks, and sometimes I would be eating in my car, waiting to go to the next stop, and I would pick up whatever happened to be close and handy. And one day I thought, oh my gosh, this is so good. I need to be telling people about this. And so I just started a little column about that.
And it's a small town, so it wouldn't be like a New York restaurant review where you would be harshly critical of...
if I didn't have something good to say, I just didn't print.
Right.
It always was positive.
Yeah. And, there's so many great restaurants, it wouldn't be too hard, I imagine.
That's right.
And is it, I think that's probably one of the most difficult businesses, especially today with social media and the internet. Is that why you stopped doing it? Was it?
Well, no, I just found that time-wise, because I sold the advertising, it was a one-woman show, and that got to be pretty hectic, and an opportunity came up for me to take on a position at Women's Enterprise Center at that time, and so I shut the magazine down and went on to be a business consultant with Women's Enterprise.
Yeah. Nice experience, though, I imagine.
It was, I loved it, and I miss it a lot. I did the whole magazine myself, except for the printing.
Yeah.
So it was
Would you do the layout?
Layout, graphics,
wow,
the whole bit.
Advertising.
Yeah. So it was a really great experience. I really loved to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Multiple full-time jobs in one.
Well, and it's labor of love. Sometimes there were lots of 15, 18-hour days trying to get everything ready, pulled together. But
no doubt. And tell us about the Women's Enterprise Center.
I was their client services coordinator, so that meant I was the first person of contact for women throughout the entire province who were interested in learning about starting their own business. So that was an opportunity for me to build. I built a resource library. I think I had 300 or 400 different links and things that no matter what anybody called for, I had something that I could refer to them. I never ever let anybody go off the phone without something to take with them. So that they
so
it
was
build
basically
on that.
Advice?
Yes. And the organization provides business loans for women in entrepreneurs. There's no grants. The government provides funding for these programs. And they discovered, I think some time ago, that handing out grants without any support, any training, any help in business development wasn't working out so well. And so they've changed most of the programs. I don't think there are many grants anymore for entrepreneurs. But what this program does, and it's Community Futures does a similar thing through EI, I think, and there's other programs out there as well. But it's for women or 50% or better women-owned businesses. And so they do have a loan program, makes it a little easier. I think their criteria is a little easier for women to get loans. And then ongoing business counseling. So financial and mentoring, all kinds of things. So it's a really great program.
Do you think for humans, if they're responsible for a loan, does it make them little more conscientious about how the money is spent.
Yeah, usually I think it does, because with that loan comes all kinds of in-depth training, and they've got a counselor assigned to them, and then a team of counselors. So, if there's ever any issues, any questions, it's a phone call away. Is
it still going?
Absolutely.
Is there any restrictions on the type of business? You said it's going to be at least 50% female owned, but beyond that...
and either a sole proprietorship or an incorporated business. Can't be a not-profit.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't think there's many restrictions. Womensenterprise.ca, I think, is where people can go to check all that good stuff out. And
did you see a lot of interesting concepts, or was it basically, bakery, like things... typical things, or were there
were some really unique ideas come through, and then there was also some people who they had this desire to do something on their own, but they hadn't researched a lot, and so you were able to give them a little bit of direction and say, well, there probably are 400 dog walkers in town. Maybe you want to research that a little bit, and just giving them the resources and the tools that they could use to do their own research. I think sometimes that's just a big help to people. They don't know where to start, and just giving them some ideas on some things to explore.
Mm-hmm. So how long have you played the cello?
Oh, I think about 5 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, not very long.
What was the first instrument you learned?
Well, other than in grade school, I think we played a recorder. But when my first job when I was 15, the first thing I did was buy myself a guitar.
Mm.
And
electric or acoustic?
No, just an acoustic, a little acoustic. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still play acoustic guitar?
A little bit. I'm finding for the people that I make music with, there are a lot of guitar players and a lot of exceptional guitar players. So, I kind of set that aside a little bit. Right. I still have a beautiful 12-string Takamine that I play for my own enjoyment, but not not any place else. I took up the violin a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I have a keyboard. I've always played at the keyboard. Mm-hmm. That was one of the things when my kids were small. I could put my headphones on and play through the night while they were sleeping. So
nice.
I could do that.
Were your parents musical? How did you become so musical?
My dad is was a bagpiper.
Oh, wow.
So
the traditional Scottish...
Yeah, big Highland pipes. And my son learned to play when he was 7, and he's a world-class player.
Wow.
Now,
now those are really loud. Is that true?
They are loud. They are.
And what's it like having a 7-year-old just learning how to play that?
They don't actually get to blow them up until they've practiced on a practice chanter. But
I see.
He was an exceptional boy, and
very good.
I never had to say, "Have you practiced your music?" He loved it from. Well, he found my dad's bagpipes. When my dad passed away, I was gifted his bagpipes. Mm-hmm. And they were an old set of pre-World War I pipes that an older gentleman had given him. And it was very emotional, and I sort of put them in my closet, and just in my heart, I knew they were there. And one day when my son was about 7, we opened the closet door, and he saw the box. And he said, "What's in there?" And I showed him, and his jaw just dropped.
Wow.
And he said, "Mom, I have to have those." And I said, "Well, they're not a toy." And he kept pestering me, And so I called the Kelowna Pipe Band. The pipe major at that time was Doug Arthur. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, I'll meet him. It's a little young for bagpipes, but I'll meet him." Turns out Doug Arthur's dad was the man who taught my dad to play. Oh. So he and my son just became fast friends immediately.
Very nice.
He took him under his wing, and by the time he was 11, he was marching full out with the band.
Wow.
Kelowna Pipe Band.
Is it possible for a 7-year-old to, you need a certain lung capacity, right? I don't know much about that.
You do, and it's a learned technique. My son had asthma as at that age too, and wasn't able even to play soccer. Mm. But we found that the blowing, they start off with something called a practice chanter, which is a very thin instrument compared to, say, a recorder that most people are aware of. Mm-hmm. And he had no problem with that.
Amazing.
And then by the time he was 12, he was already bored with a lot of the music. So Doug Arthur got him onto drumming, and by the time he was I think 17, he was the pipe major for the Royal Canadian Armed Forces Cadet group out of Vernon, because he had the knowledge of both the drumming and the piping, so could lead a group quite effectively. So, I've known all along that creativity and music and art are just such an important part of who we are. The name of my art studio is Bandri, which is a female term. It means female druid, and I love the druid philosophy of everybody's born creative and it should be celebrated every day. So that's kind of where I come from in everything that I do.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And what is a cello like for those who don't know? I know a lot of young people just have no clue about anything. Everything's electronic now.
That's right. Well, and coincidentally, I just bought an electric cello
Right?
about a month ago.
What's an electric cello look like? Does it look like a cello?
It does not look like a cello. It looks like a crossbow, actually, more than anything. But it still has an incredible sound. A cello is a very, very large version of a viola or a violin, and you sit and you play it. You hold it with your knees to keep it braced, and it has a peg that touches the floor. And the bow is, I don't know, about 2.5 feet long, a little wider than a violin bow, and the neck of it rests against your shoulder. And when you play, the vibration of the instrument is so incredibly beautiful. You become a part of the music. Amazing. And it's likened to the instrument that's closest to the human voice.
Really?
So the tones and the vibrations that you get are very similar to what a human voice gives you.
So it's a real beautiful experience just to play it.
It absolutely is. I never had even considered it until I was dog sitting for a friend who went out and taught fiddle and violin camps all through the summer across Canada. And she had a cello, and she said, I'll lend it to you anytime. So one day I went to pick up the dog to bring her home for the summer, and I said, is the offer still open for the cello? And she said, absolutely. And I took it home, and that was the last, time I ever, thought about any other instrument, I think.
Really?
For a long, long time, yeah.
How long did it take you to get good sounding, where you would be comfortable playing in front of friends, family?
Well, I don't. I'm not a classically trained musician. I like to accompany people.
I see.
I like to make sound, and I like to make music with other people. So I've been very fortunate to have two groups that I play with. One is more of a jam band, and lots of original music, lots of folk kind of music, Bob Dylan, Avett Brothers, that kind of stuff, and some other stuff thrown into, and they were so welcoming, and they just said, bring your violin, bring your cello, whatever you've got, and let's just make it happen.
And that was pretty early on since you got a cello.
That's correct. Yeah. And then now I play with a group called October Sky, and it's Robert Janes is the lead singer and main songwriter. He's prolific, and the songs he writes are absolutely incredibly beautiful. His wife Davina is one of the vocalists. Her brother Paul and Paul's partner Lisa are the other two vocalists, and Paul plays guitar, and I'm in the background with some cello notes, and we've been fortunate enough to play at a few venues around town, and we're actually playing on the Canada Day stage again this year.
Great.
At Kerry Park. Yep.
Nice. What type of music does that band play?
It's interesting. I want to say it's folk, I suppose.
I don't know.
But it's a little upbeat, or.
Yeah. Do you have any recorded tracks? Because what we've done for a few musicians is tacked it onto the end of the show, just an audio file of their recording.
We haven't got anything official. We've been working on that. Like I said, I just got called away a month or so ago, and we were setting up to record something. We do have a Facebook page. It's just October Sky.
Great.
And people can check in there. We've got some videos of some of our performances down at Kerry Park and that kind of thing. So
wonderful. Are the strings very thick on a cello?
They are.
So thicker than a guitar string?
Yes.
Are they about the thickest string you would see on an instrument? I think maybe an upright bass would be.
Yeah, an upright bass would be the bigger one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so you got to get calluses on your fingers.
It's not like a guitar. With a guitar, I can remember thinking, oh gosh, I've washed so many dishes today, I probably won't have much fun playing my guitar. With a guitar, you have to put extra pressure on. With a cello, there's not that much, and there's no frets on a cello, so you don't have to press that hard in between.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And an electric cello, just explain that to me. You described how it looks, but how does it work? And what's the point of having an electric one versus an acoustic?
Well, a couple of things. I think for me in particular, the room it takes, because very often when we play on a stage, it's postage stamp size.
Right.
And so the cello player's kind of like in the background, having a hard time fitting in or poking somebody, with the bow.
Yeah.
The other thing is also when you're performing and everybody's plugged in, because I do have my acoustic cello has a preamp and a plug, and I can plug it in. Everything's there. However, getting the cello mixed in with everything else is often a big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the electric cello, I have my own little amp, so I could run it through there and have a little more control, because there are some songs, if you want to play dynamically, where you wouldn't mind a little reverb or something else happening.
Right.
So I'm looking forward. Like I said, I only got it just over a month ago and then got called away. So I will...
Is the hand movements very different on the electric versus...
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same. So it's not as different as like a stand-up bass and a bass guitar, which is kind of your arms are positioned very differently.
No. Basically, you hold the electric cello the same way. It just doesn't have that big body for the vibrations to work through.
I see.
So it's basically a stick with some electronics on the back of it and room for the strings to run down.
Neat.
And yeah.
Cool. So tell us about the Central Okanagan Heritage Society. What is that? That's
an organization that was formed back in the 50s. They currently own Benvolan Heritage Church and McDougall House, which sits on the Gushigan property.
Mm-hmm.
Benvolan Heritage Church was built in 1892, and it went through some changes over the years. Benvolan was kind of considered the hub of where things were happening, and it was on the route, through from Vernon to different things that were happening, I think. And so they decided by about 1950 that the building was going to be burnt down by the fire hall for practice, just because it didn't serve any purpose as far as anybody could see. And a group of people said, just a minute, this can't happen. This is a beautiful piece of our heritage. And they formed the organization. And it's been going ever since, looking after the preservation and the conservation of heritage properties throughout the Okanagan. So we also run the City of Kelowna Heritage Grants Program. So we have a contractor, Laurie Dauncey, who looks after that. So if people own a heritage home, they can apply for some grant money to help them with the preservation, conservation of the outsides of their homes.
Right. So if you need your windows replaced, you want to keep the same look, the same style.
Absolutely.
As close as possible to the original.
Absolutely. It
can be expensive.
That's right. That's right. But it's important to preserve all of those good things. So
on our real estate forms, we have to say yes or no. Has your property been designated as a heritage site? How does someone get on the designation? How does that happen? Do you drive around and say, well, that home's got to be on it?
Well, I suppose that could be part of it. I think mostly it's people apply.
I see.
You can apply. We do have people in the organization who really are vigilant and keep their eyes open for what's going on in the community. And a lot of the community, whether they're members or involved with the organization at all, are still aware. And we just need to keep the word out there that we exist, and we can find the people that can help you get to the right spot.
Yeah, because I know some people don't really care about that stuff, unfortunately, like the people who were thinking it would be a good idea to set the church on fire for practice. And some people think, well, I'd like to bulldoze this and put condos.
Well, exactly right.
So can anybody in the community could say, hey, this home needs to be on the heritage list.
That's right. And then we can get them to the right place. The city is getting more and more aware and involved, making good steps, I think, towards making sure that we do preserve our heritage properties. We have some really valuable and beautiful spots here. And
definitely. Are most of them around like Abbott Street and Kelowna South, or are they all over the city?
They're all over. They're all over. You see a lot downtown Lawrence Avenue and in the residential area there, and Brent's Grist Mill, which is out on bottom of Dilworth Mountain at the end of Dilworth Drive there. Out in the Mission, they're just doing a redevelopment of the property there, the Surtees barn, and so they've got a little mini mall development going on there.
I've seen that. That's that new traffic circle down by Colette.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that's
and they kept the barn.
Yes.
Which is nice. And what's inside the barn now?
I think maybe a bakery. I'm not even sure. I haven't been out there for a little bit. My aunt and uncle used to own that property.
Oh, wow.
Years and years ago for a bit of time. So
amazing.
So there's lots of beautiful, beautiful opportunities. There's some interest coming up. Again, the city owns a lot of the properties. For example, Cameron House, which is just over there on Richter, and they're looking at developing that adaptive reuse for the space.
Right.
So keeping it as preserved as possible, but bringing it back to the community as an opportunity for use by the community. Various things.
I recall totally non-related example, but I grew up in Toronto, and the old Maple Leaf Gardens was kind of a disaster. It was kind of a very uncomfortable place to watch hockey. So they built the Air Canada Centre downtown, but they wanted to demolish the old post office. And that was a huge uproar. So what they did was they actually incorporated the old post office into the building. So the facade and everything is intact from the original post office, which was mid-1800s, I think. Yeah. And it's right on the side of that modern arena, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
that is cool. It's interesting, and I've always loved the heritage because of my family being here so long. I've got photographs of all kinds of really amazing things happening, and my grandfather working in the tobacco fields out on Benvol, and apparently there was rice paddies up on Black Mountain for a while, and really interesting things like that happening. So I just came on with the organization in middle of November.
Okay.
So I'm just myself learning about a lot of that kind of thing. I was involved at a different level through the Kelowna Arts Council. We held a lot of and still do hold a lot of our events in the Benvolin Heritage Church. The acoustics in the church are absolutely phenomenal.
Really?
We've done amazing concerts in there. And so it's quite beautiful. We book for weddings. We're booking 3 years in advance now for weddings, I think. So it's a beautiful spot. The gardens are well kept. We have a caretaker on site. And so, we take that very seriously and really try to look after the property and make it available to the public.
I think you said, when was that church built?
1892.
1892. And do you know what the oldest building still remaining in Kelowna is? Would that be it, or?
That's a good question.
Close?
That's a good question. Still stand. I'm going to find out because I don't know actually.
Yeah, or do you know of several that are 1800s?
Well, there's Father Pandozzi Mission. A lot of those buildings came in around the same time, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe earlier. I'm not sure.
And I think it was mid to late 1800s when the first settlers came here.
Yeah. So there's lots of little places that you don't even see when you go by sometimes, and there's little cabins or little pieces of property.
Very nice.
People can contact me anytime. We have Facebook presence, Kelowna Arts Council.
Right.
And
we'll put links to all your things right in the show notes, so that's great.
Terrific.
Lynda, who would you like to nominate to come on the show?
Oh my gosh. That's, as I said before, that's going to be the hardest thing for me to pinpoint one person. There are so
You can name a couple
many.
if you like, but it's up to you.
Yes. I would like to nominate Jacob Pasterfield.
Okay.
He's just come on as a Kelowna Arts Council board member, and he does some pretty amazing things with sound, and I think he'd be a really interesting person to talk to. He's fairly new to Kelowna, so
nice.
And I think he likes it here.
Great.
So that would be great.
Okay, we'll get in touch with Jacob. Thanks so much for your time, Lynda.
Right,
I love conversations like this about the history of Kelowna. I've only been here for 7 years myself, 7.5.
Oh, welcome.
And I love it very much. And so it's always interesting to hear, what came in the decades before.
Well, and I'm glad you're doing this. It's important to have, we missed that connection And we do the last Monday of every month, we do Creatives and Coffee at the Marmalade Cat Cafe from 3 to 5, and just invite anybody to come and talk about what's on their creative mind.
Great. Well, I should come and
you should
talk about this show because I think it's a great opportunity to connect people. And with the nominations, I get to meet people that I wouldn't otherwise meet. And hopefully for the listeners, too, they get to hear from people that they haven't heard of before. So
terrific.
Great. Thanks again, Lynda.
Thanks.
Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Newtown Big Dreams podcast with your host, Luke Menkes, and his authentic guests. And we love our listeners and hope you subscribe now to learn more about the amazing journeys of our incredible guests who relocated to find a new town, big dreams. And remember, make your dreams big.